Welcome back to the channel, and today we'll be doing a player ratings video for the recent loss against Southampton in the FA Cup quarterfinals. 2-1 the scoreline. I've had a day of reflection and a day much needed, because I think I think all of us were probably feeling quite painful out of that game. Definitely not an outcome that we obviously expected. I mean, Southampton, still a quality championship side. Mentioned that there were 14 games unbeaten coming into this game, but we're top of the Premier League. We are one of the favourites for the Champions League. This should be a match that we should be able to get through, despite, the several lineup changes that Arteta put us out there, which I think was fair enough. A lot of players were coming back from international duty. Some players were nursing some potential injuries, but we should have the quality, no matter what personnel we have put out there, to finish the job. And unfortunately, that did not go down very well. Anyway, on to the ratings. We'll start out with Kepa, as Arteta continued playing Kepa for the cup ties. So Kepa played today, and probably his last match of the season, unless maybe we clinch the Premier League early, and Arteta just sits out Raya for. But I doubt that will happen. I think this Premier League race will go to the wire. So I think this will probably be Kepa's last game of the season. There's a lot of discourse with Kepa, especially how he performed in the Carabao Cup final against Man City a couple of weeks ago. Today, the match against Southampton, honestly, I think he was okay. I don't think he made any egregious mistakes, but you could definitely tell that the trust that the players at the backline has with Kepa is not there, and I think that's understandable. I mean, David Raya is one of the best keepers in the world, maybe the best keeper in the Premier League, and when you're comparing that to any other keeper outside of your leading keepers in the world, like the Courtois and the Donnarummas in the world, Kepa's not going to hold a candle to that sort of standard. But yeah, and look, it's not any fault of his own. He's just not as great as David Raya, and definitely hasn't had the game time and experience with our backline as Raya, which is unfortunate. But I think Kepa individually played okay. He came out to claim several crosses. I think he dealt with them pretty comfortably. He actually tried to lead the fast break quite often with those long early throws out to the midfield. But the midfield didn't do him any favors, as once they claimed the ball, they were so hesitant to drive the ball forward, despite Kepa's willingness to do that sort of stuff. So I don't think that's his own fault. The 2 goals that were let in, look, they were not going to be easy saves. They were wide open in our box, so super, super wide open in our box. And it was just a guessing game. And if Kepa could have saved them, then sure. But I don't think they were saves that any keeper should expect to save. That was more on the defense side of things. So look, yes, Kepa, probably not going to feature in any more games, and unfortunate that he's been our last 2 losses so far. But individually, I think he was okay. I'm going to put him as an average. I think he did his job. He made some, he made a couple of comfortable saves, crosses claimed, tried to distribute and lead, just push the pace, but the team definitely didn't do him any favors there. Okay, let's do our first fullback in Miles Skelly, who came on to start in place of Calafiori, as Hincapié is out with an injury. Scully, you could definitely tell that he's, lacking the match fitness, or at least, up to the speed of the higher level game. We saw him recently in the under 21s where he performed extremely well, probably one of the man of the matches of that game. But in the Arsenal uniform, I think he's definitely, not up to that level yet. And that's probably down to the lack of game time that he's unfortunately not able to have, because we have two extremely talented left backs in his position. And yeah, he's suffering that. But look, he tried to take the game on, but his execution definitely wasn't up to par. There was a lot of times where he was trying to shield the ball, trying to drive the ball up, and lead the attack from the back, but he was dispossessed quite regularly, and for the most part, our defensive line was struggling a lot to maintain the long balls and the fast breaks that Southampton were throwing at us, especially early in the game. Look, Miles Lewis-Skelly couldn't really get too much done going forward either. Didn't have much of an impact, unfortunately. I'll probably have to put him as a poor, unfortunately. Definitely needs that bit of game time with the senior team, and I don't think that'll be happening very soon. The way he plays, he definitely suits to be that midfielder. I do wish that, Arteta does give him a chance to play in that midfield role, be that box-to-box defensive midfielder, because I think that's where his game is more suited, and where he can actually be a bit more brave without being super costly if he does lose the ball, because he is the left back, and if he does get dispossessed, they're on a break and we're down a man on the back line. So yeah, hopefully it's something that Arteta is willing to entertain in the near future, but maybe this season that might not be in the cards. Moving on, Mosquera starting in for Saliba, who eventually came on as a substitute. Mosquera, very shaky at the start of the game. Eventually grew into the game, but he played some extremely poor passes that led to really difficult situations for our backline. Early on, he nearly slipped up and misplaced a pass and nearly cost us a goal. And then there was that incident with Gabriel's header where it went behind him, and Mosquera was positioned really poorly, and to his credit, was able to chase down the Southampton attacker in the end. But man, he shouldn't have been so out of position in that situation there. And it continued in the second half where there was a poor pass again. Mosquera definitely he's been struggling of late, especially as the centre back role. And look, he's coming in for Saliba and at times Gabriel, two world-class centre backs. But he definitely needs to step it up, because we do definitely need him. And off the back of Gabriel's injury that occurred during the game, we may need to see more minutes from Mosquera, and he needs to step it up to help us get through the run-in in the near weeks. Definitely a poor performance from Mosquera for me. Gabriel, in the same line of the defenders, probably was the best of the defenders, although, as I mentioned before, that misjudged header that he did led to what should have been probably a Southampton chance or a shot on target, but Mosquera recovered quite well. But overall, I think defensively was very solid. He made some very key blocks and tackles, and ultimately played in Havertz for the goal that we scored. So that was nicely done from Gabriel. We had 9 corners. We took them all short, so didn't really get too involved in the corner game. But overall, had a solid performance, but distribution wise and maybe a lack of cohesiveness and structure on defensive line led to a lot of just scary moments. The back line definitely looked very fragile. I think he was a part of that. I'll bump him up to an average, mainly because that he did create that one goal that we scored, but otherwise definitely expect more from Gabriel, especially as the leading centre half for the team there. Ben White, not much to be said. Poor. One of the worst performances I've seen Ben White play. Obviously, solely responsible for the first goal that Southampton scored. Completely misjudges the cross coming in, and he goes for the header, flies over his head, lands into the lap of a Southampton attacker, and he had all the time in the world to just smash the ball into the back of the net. Kepa had no chance, unless he just does an incredible save, which you can't really ask from the keeper in that situation, and that was all on Ben White. And then furthermore, struggled to keep his left winger under control for probably the whole game. Definitely dribbled his way into a lot of trouble at times, and at times just had to lay it off to Kepa in a hurry, which put Kepa in a really rough spot, and all Kepa could do was clear the ball out for a throw in, doing no good service for Kepa there as well. And then just way too many fouls. There were so many long balls as Southampton were trying to play out of the press, and then as the Southampton player would come and collect and hold the ball up, White would just foul him for no reason. Just no reason at all. And it really infuriates me. And yeah, look, not much to be said. Just a really poor performance. And attacking wise, he had a lot of opportunities to get stuff done. We were playing through the right side constantly, especially in the first half when Max Dowman was on that right-hand side. We were feeding him the ball at every opportunity, much like we do with Saka as well. I think that is an identity that we do enjoy. We do like playing through that right side, no matter what the personnel is. Even if Madueke is there, we do that as well. So, and Ben White was involved quite a lot, providing his overlapping runs, and he received those opportunities to play those crosses, but the quality of the crosses was just not there as well. Maybe partly due to the fact that we didn't have maybe the aerial threats that we could have had with maybe like your Rices, Zuma Mendes, Gyökeres. I mean, Havertz was there, but just maybe not as many targets he could hit in the box, but still, he definitely could play into that corridor of uncertainty a little bit more there. So yeah, definitely a really poor performance. And not to mention that he did get given the captain's armband when I think it was Odegaard went off. So not the best performance coming out of your vice/captain of the match. Moving on to our midfield. We'll go with Odegaard first. And Odegaard, great to see him back. And there's a lot of discourse in this game, a lot of harsh criticism. But I thought Odegaard was good. He was one of the more aggressive players. He was trying to make a lot of things happen. He was prepared to take those long shots, thread in those through balls, trying to be more creative. He was more willing to try and dribble through the defensive line, which we don't see too often from him. But he was definitely a lot braver. Some people may criticize him for the first goal where he tried to play a cheeky little back heel towards Max Dowman, but because of a miscommunication possibly, Dowman wasn't ready for it, and then it led to a break. But look, it was ultimately on White and our defensive line to protect that. It's definitely not on Odegaard there because he was trying to make stuff happen, and we lost the ball very deep in the Southampton half. There should be no excuses for us not to stop at that break. And Odegaard, and you can definitely tell when he's on the pitch how he's able to lead our press. He's so crucial to leading our press. You could see him making those those commandments on the pitch, telling people where to go, telling people when to press, telling people when to cover these certain areas. That is why Odegaard is our captain. That's why he is so crucial into our pressing game, and we definitely pressed extremely well against Southampton. We had 70% of the possession of the ball in the first half, mainly because of our press, because Southampton couldn't deal with it. They had to kick long balls constantly and into our defenders, and we just kept getting possession. Definitely the biggest flaw of his game was that attempted finish in the box where he got the cutback. I can't remember who it was from. I think it was Martinelli or someone like that. And he had all the space in the world inside the box and completely whiffed his shot. I think dragged it into the ground or against his foot or whatever, and it goes wide. So that's the one big blemish on his performance, and to be fair, a pretty big one, because that should have been a shot on target or quite potentially a goal. And who knows, we get that one goal early in the game, we are settled, we can play our way, be a bit more confident, and we see this game a bit more comfortably. But because of that, unfortunate. But look, a good return, and I liked seeing what he did in this game. He was a lot more brave, a lot more willing to try and be technical and make stuff happen. And I think, unfortunately, he was playing alongside Jesus. I don't think it's the sort of striker that Odegaard is suited for. He wants to play those through balls in on behind the defense, and Jesus isn't that sort of player to make those runs. Norgard coming in as our defensive midfielder in place of the Zubimendi or the Rice position in this match. I think it was okay. I think his second half was really, really poor. He was misplacing passes. He kept getting dispossessed. He couldn't control the passes very well. And yeah, look, he was part of a reason why we were so unstable in the back line as well. And yeah, didn't really get into a groove at all in this game. Obviously not maybe not the direct fault of our goals or our performance, but he is definitely one of the contributing factors of it, and that instability came from him at some points of the game, and that should be his job. He did get back to make some key tackles and interceptions, but ultimately he just didn't give me that the comfort that the comfort of our backline structure that we usually have with a Zubimendi or a Rice in there. So I'm gonna have to put him as a poor. Martinelli's a funny one in this game. I thought he started the game really well. He came back and made some great interceptions and helped us move up the pitch with the ball. Made some nice cutbacks and crosses and some lovely dribbles around his defender, winning corners. But ultimately his finishing is I don't know what is wrong with his finishing. It's just he's always spraying the ball wide or over the bar. There was that one short corner where we took. It was a lovely short corner routine, and it was started from Martinelli taking the short corner. He plays it short to whoever came close. I think it was Jesus or something. Worked the ball around, and Martinelli runs around, finds the ball at his feet at the top of the middle of the box, and completely drags the shot wide. I feel like it's a shot that you do in training all the time. As a shot that you should be doing. You should at least be hitting the target 9 times out of 10, 10 out of 10 at this level, and he drags it wide, and that's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable at this level. So yeah, it's really unfortunate. He was working really hard, but ultimately, you're an attacker at this team, and you need to be able to finish. And ultimately, he just, yeah, his finishing is just, and it's a property that us Gooners know. We know his finishing has been unreliable, and so that's why we've been so hungry for a left winger in our team. Yes, Trossard has been decent this season so far, but he's dropped off a bit due to the injuries and the missed time. So Martinelli has to play in that role, and unfortunately, yeah, his finishing has been poor, and it's been a blemish on his career so far. And it's crazy because you see some goals earlier in the season, earlier in the FA Cup or the Champions League. We know he can finish. We know he can finish. Even the goal that he scored for Brazil, before this FA Cup tie, it was a brilliant finish on his left foot. Drills it, low drives it straight into the right corner. But yeah, he's just inconsistent with his finishes, and we need that consistency, and that we need that class from Martinelli. And unfortunately, I think we know that he just doesn't provide that in a clutch situations. Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm balancing between like poor and average. Look, he's an attacker. He needs to be able to provide that finishing touch, and ultimately, I think I'll put him as a poor. Let me move these across so I don't, because I think I'll be pulling more players in the poor category. Kai Havertz coming in as our number 10. This is a role that I don't really understand why Arteta has put Havertz in that role, especially paired with Jesus. I think Havertz is more designed to be in that striker role. Unless, and we've seen that partnership between Gyökeres and Havertz, as Havertz in the 10 and Gyökeres as our lone striker. That's been working. That has worked very well in the past. I don't know why we haven't gone back to that as often as I would have liked. But him on that role, especially with Jesus, is just not a setup of the team that I really enjoy. I would have really liked to see Havertz up front, especially with Odegaard available as a 10. And ultimately, Havertz was invisible for most of the game. He did do that cutback to Gyökeres, a lovely cutback, to be fair. Was able to pass in between a couple of defenders and pinpoint it straight to Gyökeres, who was making a really, really, really good late run, and finds him very accurately. But other than that, can you really think of another Havertz moment that really stands out as our number 10? Probably not. So yeah, he was definitely very invisible, and I think we need way more from him. Especially, you factor in the wages and all that and the experience. Yes, he's working back into fitness, but he's had quite a bit of game time, especially with Germany over the international break. I think he's had ample time to get back into match fitness. So yeah, very disappointed with his output this game, and I'll have to put him as a poor, I believe. All right, moving on. Max Dowman, what a talent we have on our hands. At the very least, it was a very depressing, angry match to watch. But man, Max Dowman gives us something to look forward to, something very exciting to look forward to. He is a player that just wants to take his man on at every opportunity. Even on the moments where he decides to pass it back and recycle the ball, his first instinct is to look to attack. Attack his fullback, attack the defensive midfielder that's marking him, attack. And the start of the game, he started out slow, he was getting dispossessed, his dribbles weren't working out very well. But over time, you could definitely see the quality that he has in him. He was showing his strength constantly, being able to shield the ball, turning and receive the ball on a half turn and make a really aggressive run and drawing many, many fouls. had a really good shot on target that unfortunately was aimed a bit too close to the keeper, so he made a pretty comfortable save. Still went out for a corner, but on another day maybe he kills it on a little bit more into the corner, and that finds its way back to the net. And so yeah, that is something that Max Darwin needs to improve on. The finishing, that is definitely the hardest thing, but once he gets that down, man, he's going to be so good for us. So the future is bright, but man, we might actually need Darwin for the rest of the season, because at the moment he looks to be our best, most impactful attacker right now because of how brave, how willing he is to take the game on. And it's just crazy that a 16-year-old that's just come into the club amongst all these really experienced attacking midfielders like Havertz in this game, like Jesus, like Martinelli, like Odegaard, although Odegaard had a good game, as I said before, so I'm not going to harp on too much of that, but Max Darwin definitely proved the point that we need to take the game on. We need to be a bit more exciting. And is it a case of overcoaching at this point? Is Arteta being way too formulaic with how we play? It's hard to tell because we've only ever had Arteta as a manager with this core of players, with the core of Saka and Odegaard and all that, and Havertz. So until we find another manager, is it actually a coaching thing, or is it just a mentality of our players thing? But Max Darwin is going to be definitely in a very good category, going to be sitting alone there, and man, he's going to be such a player for us. Gabriel Jesus, straight into the pool. Oh my god, Gabriel Jesus, I don't know what to say about him. I don't know what to say about Gabriel Jesus. I just don't want to see him play ever again anymore. He just doesn't offer anything. And that technical ability that he used to display is not there anymore. His execution of the simplest passes is just not there anymore. And he just doesn't seem to scare anyone. It doesn't have that aura of a striker when someone like a Haaland, even Gyökeres at this point, when they collect the ball, you can sense the defenders backing off, trying to assess, but Jesus never puts himself in a position to be a goal scorer. And yeah, and look, and I think the discourse against him when he goes out on these interviews and says all these things and talks a big game but doesn't back it up at all. In fact, goes out on the pitch and whimpers out like that. It's why are we playing him? I want Gyökeres in the striker role. I want Gyökeres and I want Havertz as the backup. I don't want to see Jesus up there. Unless he finds a way to prove me wrong, prove all of us wrong in the near future. I just want to see those two players in that role. I don't want to see Jesus. I think his tenure at this club may be over. And it's hard to ignore what he's done for the club when he first came in. He did give us that winning mentality, and did lead us to a couple of really exciting seasons, title racing seasons. But ultimately, his role here is just, I think the flame has flickered out. All right, moving a quick word on the subs. Gyökeres, goal, beautiful finish, beautiful run into the box. I just would have liked to see him earlier in the game. I would have liked to see him go on, get subbed on at halftime. Give him some more time to impact on the game. Because when he did come on, he was good. He was great. But unfortunately, when he did come on, Odegaard had to go off. So that's our creative playmaking parts are off, and I think that pairing between Odegaard and Gyökeres could have been really good to see. And unfortunately, he goes off. So that's one less option for Odegaard and Gyökeres. But yeah, look, he's on form. Brilliant international duty with Sweden. Comes in, bangs a goal for us in the FA Cup. So yeah, it's great to see him in form, and hope to see more of him in the title run. And for a short stint, look, very good for him. Can't wait to see more of Gyökeres up front. No more Jesus, please. Saliba came on pretty late to cover on for Gabriel's knee injury. Hopefully, praying, it's not too big of an issue. Didn't look too bad, but obviously, you can't take anything at eye value. Came on, didn't have too much. Unfortunately, was involved in the late Southampton goal. It's a bit of a blemish there, but I don't think he had too much of an impact on the game, although he probably didn't have the opportunity to do so. So yeah, I'll probably just give it an average. Calafiori came on for Miles Lewis-Skelly and tried to be the Calafiori that we know and love. There were a couple of shots that he blazed away over the bar. Definitely something that he can definitely need to improve on. Those shots, especially those rebounding shots that comes from a corner or whatever deflection that lands at his feet at the top of the box. He needs to be able to get his foot over the ball, control it, and at least hit the target, because we can't have those shots that are finding him in good spaces. It is definitely an opportunity for us to get a scoring opportunity, but unless he can finish those a bit more cleanly, more clinically, that it's an area of the game that he needs to improve on, and hopefully he can. But otherwise, he was alright, average. I'll put him as average. Maybe a little bit at fault for the final goal of Southampton. Couldn't contain the right winger effectively enough and allowed him to cut in, and then the right winger found the Southampton player in the box and led to the goal. And Madueke came on to provide some fresh legs as the right winger and pushing Dalman into the cam role. Again, not a lot of impact from him. Gosh, he's just such a confusing player, and there are a lot of times where he shows his flares of brilliance, and then he just the final touch of the ball, the final dribble, he just touches it way too heavily and it goes out for a goal kick. And then his finishing, there's sometimes, like earlier in the season, there are some amazing finishes. The one against Mansfield, brilliant finish. But then the shots that he had today, just completely wide, completely over the bar. He's such a confusing player, man. But he's exciting, but he's so confusing, and unfortunately, that lack of clinical execution puts him probably in a poor area for me. Arteta, look, he tried to rotate. He tried to be brave. He tried to rest some legs because of injuries and international duties. Ultimately, I think tactically it was okay. I think the way we pressed, the way we kept possession of the ball, and we created a lot of chances. Ultimately, it's up to the players to execute, and unfortunately, they failed him. If there was a blemish on Arteta, it's the fact that I would have liked to see changes earlier on in the second half. It's most namely Gyökeres. But, look, and you could probably fault him for keeping Kepa on, but I don't think this game is on the manager. You look at the players that we played today, they should be enough to beat a championship side comfortably, or at least beat them. And I think, yeah, look, the lineup maybe not as cohesive as you'd like, but it should be enough. So I'll put him as an average. So, anyways, that's my player ratings for the really disappointing loss against Southampton over the weekend. Hope you've enjoyed that. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and see if there's anything that you disagree or agree on. And hope to see you guys in soon. And we'll be playing midweek against Sporting. Hopefully, a return to form.